The monologues present The Fizzy Fuzzy Chronicles, a fictional true crime series inspired by Fizzy Fuzzy Big and Buzzy, the iconic album by The Refreshments. What you're about to hear is a reconstruction of events, interviews, recordings, rumors, half-truths, and very, very few good ideas. It's a story about love, sort of. It's a story about crime, definitely. And it's a reminder that sometimes the people you run from are the same ones you run toward. This is the Fizzy Fuzzy Chronicles. And yes, it gets worse from here. When we left Jack and Diane in part 1, their world was already teetering on the edge, a cocktail of passion, dysfunction, and chaos. They weren't just a pair of star-crossed lovers, they were a live wire and a spark, destined to ignite everything they touched. But there was another piece to this puzzle, a third voice, always present but rarely noticed. Charlie McGregor, the guy who tried to keep the peace, only to find himself caught in the crossfire. Charlie's story isn't about chaos or destruction. It's about loyalty, to friends who didn't deserve it, to a life that wouldn't let him go, and to the faint hope that he could make it out unscathed. So how does a quiet, resourceful guy like Charlie end up at the center of this mess? Let's start at Mekong, a bar with sticky floors, dim lights, and a jukebox older than the bartender. It's the kind of place where regrets are born and bad decisions bloom like weeds in the cracks of the floor. That night, Jack and Diane didn't walk in with a plan. They walked in looking for trouble, and they found it. Charlie, his loyalty outweighing his common sense, hoping to keep the chaos in check, joined them. What none of them knew was that the choices they made that night would ripple outward, shaping everything that came next. This is Part 2, A Night at the Mekong, where an ordinary night becomes the kind of story you can't walk away from, the kind of story that starts with a whisper and ends in a roar. If Jack is the spark and Diane the fire, then Charlie is the quiet, soft drizzle that tries to keep the flames under control and gets scorched in the process. Charlie was born into a family that moved like clockwork, but with no rhythm. He grew up learning to be resourceful out of sheer necessity. The kind of kid who could fix a leaky faucet with duct tape and determination, but he never quite learned how to fix himself. In high school, Charlie was a kid who laughed at Jack's jokes and quietly admired Diane from a distance. He didn't mind being the sidekick. Actually, if you ask him, he'd say that he thrived on it, being part of something bigger than himself, even if it meant tagging along on adventures he didn't fully understand. But high school doesn't last forever, and neither do the friendships it forges. While Jack and Diane drifted apart after graduation, Charlie stayed behind, patching up his life one odd job at a time. He wasn't unhappy, exactly, but he wasn't thriving either. He was just there, waiting for something to shake him loose. So when Jack called him out of the blue one day, saying he was back in town, Charlie didn't hesitate. Nostalgia is a powerful drug, and the promise of reconnecting with old friends was too tempting to resist. What Charlie didn't expect was Diane, or the whirlwind that would follow. And so here we have it, our players set, Jack, Diane, and Charlie. 3 lives, 3 perspectives, 1 night. This is where our story truly takes off. A dive bar, a coin flip, and a choice that none of them can take back. Welcome to Mekong.
It's kind of funny. Honestly, I didn't even want to go that night. Bars really aren't my idea of a good time. I mean, they're loud, people are everywhere, and the smell of cheap beer? Ugh. It's like my brain instantly decides to make me regret everything. But then Jack called. Said I had to come. Said Diane insisted, and well, when Diane insists, you don't really have a choice. You just go. I mean, I figured hang out for a few minutes, share in their jokes for a bit, and then leave. If need be, maybe I could, keep things from totally spiraling out of control, as they usually do. But, yeah, that was me being optimistic. So, I got there first, and let me tell you, Mekong wasn't exactly, fancy. The floors are always nasty and sticky, the lights were dim enough to make you question your life choices, and there was this old school style jukebox that probably thought it was still the 60s. It's the kind of place where you just don't ask about the food. Still can't believe they serve food there or who's eating it. So I grabbed a table in the corner, trying to look like I knew what I was doing, sipping on my Diet Coke like I had it all together, just waiting for them to show up. The bartender kept shooting me this look like she couldn't figure out why I was there by myself, sipping on a Diet Coke. Honestly, I couldn't either.
Mekong was Diane's idea, obviously. She had a thing for places like that. Grimy, loud, everyone trying way too hard to disappear. She called it having character. I called it probably covered in hepatitis. I wasn't in the mood for it that night. Writing had been a brick wall I kept slamming into. My car was on its last legs again, and the last thing I needed was another one of Diane's spontaneous adventures. But, of course, she wouldn't take no for an answer. Live a little, Jack, she says. So, there I was, shoved into a booth next to Charlie, who looked like he'd rather be at home with a bottle of aspirin, and Diane, who was already eyeballing the place like she was the queen of the joint.
I'll admit it, I dragged them to Mekong. Jack would have stayed home, glued to his computer, and Charlie, well, Charlie doesn't leave unless you light a fire under him. Mekong wasn't anything fancy, but it was alive. The kind of place where anything could happen. And that's exactly what I loved about it. It was everything I needed in that moment. I really wasn't even planning anything when we walked in. Not at first. But then, I saw it. That trashy bartender Sheila sorting through a mountain of receipts with a fat-ass stack of cash just sitting there practically begging to be noticed. It was like an invitation. I slid up to the bar, pulled out my coin, and flashed her my best smile. Heads, I tell the truth, I said, flipping the coin. Tails, I lie. She gave me that look, like she wasn't sure whether to laugh or call the cops. Tails. I lied, told her I was just passing through looking for some fun. And the funniest thing, it wasn't even a total lie. I was looking for fun, just not the kind she imagined.
I should have just left when I had the chance. The moment Diane started whispering to Jack, I knew something was brewing. She had that look in her eye, half mischief, half, trouble. I tried asking Jack what was going on, but of course, he just shrugged. Fucking classic Jack. The guy never knew how to tell Diane no. And sure enough, before I could even talk myself out of it, she was at the bar, flipping a coin and chatting with the bartender like she was setting up some kind of game. I didn't catch what she said, but honestly, I didn't have to. Diane doesn't do small talk. She sets things up. And when she's the one pulling the strings, it's never good for anyone else.
Diane just said she wanted another drink. That's what she told me, anyway. Maybe I should have stopped her. Should have yelled at her and asked why she was flipping that stupid coin at the bartender, why she suddenly had that look in her eyes, the one that made it seem like she'd just come up with the greatest idea ever. But I didn't, because, well, part of me wanted to see what she'd do next. You see, Diane, she makes you curious. Makes you think that maybe, just maybe, this time, it'll all come together. Spoiler alert, it didn't.
It wasn't supposed to be a big deal. Just a little fun. A little thrill. I figured I'd grab as much cash as I could, buy a round for everyone, and no one would even care to notice. Simple, right? But then I look over and see that Jack had started fidgeting, like he was about to combust. Oh, and don't let him fool you. He was scared shitless. Charlie kept shooting me those wide-eyed looks like I was about to rob a bank. Their nerves? Yeah, they made me second-guess myself, and I got a little sloppy. Before I could even come up with some clever excuse, the bartender caught me, red-handed. And like a switch flipping, she was already on the phone, calling the cops. Over what? Nothing. Just a stupid little game I was playing, and now it was turning into a damn mess.
The sirens? They were fast. Too fast. 1 minute we were just sitting there, trying to look normal, and the next, the whole place was lit up with red and blue. Diane grabs my arm and mutters something about getting out the back. I didn't argue. Jack? Yeah, he was frozen, like always. I pretty much had to drag him out the door. So we ran, down the alley, past the dumpsters, through the parking lot. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear Diane yelling at us to move faster. I don't even know how we ended up by the car. All I know is 1 second I was running for my life, and the next I was shoved in the back seat, praying to whoever would listen that we wouldn't get caught.
Mekong wasn't a stranger to bad decisions, but the night Diane, Jack, and Charlie walked in, that wasn't just bad decisions. It was the start of something much worse. That night, the chaos erupted. In the following witness statements from Chuck, Sheila, and even Officer Cam Stevens, who just happened to be next door, pieced together the full picture. Witness statement: Chuck. Refused to give last name. Mekong regular. Recorded by Officer Ramirez, 1:34 a.m., following the incident.
Trouble. It's easy to spot if you've been around long enough. And let me tell you, that Diane chick walked in wearing it like a crown. She didn't just stroll in. She marched into the place, flipping a stupid coin, giving everyone this look like, who's she gonna mess with first? I was just trying to have a drink, forget about life, what you do at Mekong. Now, I've seen things here before, crazy things. People looking for a rush, trying to make a scene, and it never ends well for them. Gives me a chuckle, though, because it's like watching a movie, and I get to drink while doing it, without having to sneak booze into the theater. So that guy Jack, he followed her in, as usual, head down, just defeated. That other kid, Charlie, I think, he looked like he was about to spill his drink, just holding on to it. Nah, clearly they weren't here for the beer. Or the jukebox either, which, has all my favorite songs on it. I watched her, Diane, head up to the bar and start chatting with Sheila. Now, people don't chat with Sheila, they just go and order a drink. So I laughed about it a little and didn't think much of it at first. But then I saw that little thief reach over and grab the cash from the register. She didn't try to be sneaky, man. Sheila's good people. Always greets me with a smile. Always makes the drink strong. Well, she froze for a second, and the two of them just stopped and stared at each other like gunslingers. Then Diane gave her this smirk, this crazy smile, like she thought it was funny. When the sirens started up, it was like someone set off a firecracker in the place, man. It was crazy. Diane tore out the back, laughing like a supervillain. Jack was swearing under his breath, as usual. Poor Charlie looked like he was about to cry. He looked back, and his face said, sorry, everybody. They were out the door before anyone could even make sense of what happened. I enjoyed my drink that night.
Witness statement. Sheila Jones, bartender at Mekong, recorded by Officer Stevens, 1:45 a.m., following the incident.
Oh, I remember that girl, clear as day. Diane, right? Yeah, I clocked her the second she walked in, strutting like she owned the place, flipping that coin like she was deciding who to rob first. And Jack? That boy looked like a hostage who didn't realize he was part of a crime yet. And of course, Charlie, he had been sitting there all night, looking like a deer that just realized it wandered onto a racetrack. Now, I've seen my fair share of characters roll through Mekong. Guys who think a $6 tip makes them a high roller, drunks who swear they know the owner, and a guy last week who tried to barter a stolen TV for some whiskey. So Diane wasn't exactly shocking. At first, she was just chatty, talking about how she was just passing through, which in hindsight was probably the most honest thing she said all night. Told me she was looking for fun. And listen, I've been bartending long enough to know that fun can mean a lot of things, most of them ending with a call to the cops. But I figured, hey, she's just another traveler stopping by to test my patience and forget about life for a while. And then bam, next thing you know, she's leaning over the counter like she's checking the specials, and she goes and helps herself to a handful of cash from the register. Just like that, no hesitation, like she was picking up a bar snack. So I stared her right in the eye and said, "What do you think you're doing?" And you know what she did? Smiled. Like I just caught her in the middle of a magic trick. Like I was supposed to be impressed. Now, I may not be a genius, but I do know how numbers work, and those numbers weren't adding up. So I did what any sane person would do. I picked up the phone and called the cops. Didn't yell, didn't panic, just dialed while keeping eye contact like a mom about to tell a misbehaving kid's real parent what they just did. And Diane? She just stood there, grin still plastered on her pretty little face. Like this was all some kind of fun little oopsie. Meanwhile, Jack looked like he'd suddenly developed heartburn, and Charlie, he looked like he was going to pass out, which honestly made me feel a little bad for the guy, just a little. What that princess didn't know about me was, I don't mess around. You want to pull a stunt like that in my bar? You better be faster than my dialing finger. And Diane? Well, she sure thought she was.
Statement of Officer Cam Stevens, first on the scene.
I wasn't even officially on shift yet, just grabbing a quick lotto ticket and one of those frozen burritos at the gas station next to Mekong before clocking in. You ever had one of those? Tastes better on the box than in real life. But when you're pulling graveyard shifts, you don't exactly get to get picky. Sheila, the bartender at Mekong, she's good people. Hard worker, tough. Always handles herself well, but around here, closing up late can be dicey, so whenever I can, I park across the street until she gets safely to her car. Nothing official, just looking out, you know? She appreciates it, though she never admit it. Anyway, that night, right as I was paying, I heard yelling, real yelling, not the usual drunken nonsense. We usually get 2 or 3 calls from Mekong a week, but this felt different. By the time I got over there, Sheila was already on the phone, rattled as hell. She spotted me and pointed straight out that back door. Said 3 people had just robbed her and bolted. 2 guys, 1 blonde woman. Said the woman seemed to be running the show. I sprinted out the back. Alley was pitch black except for a few buzzing lights. Saw them right away. Diane was in the lead, hauling ass like she had done this before, focused and purposeful. The first guy behind her, Jack, was stumbling, tripping over bags, swearing loud enough I could hear it over my own breathing. The second guy, Charlie, looked downright terrified, lagging behind like he didn't know how he had got there and wasn't sure if he wanted to keep going. I flipped on the flashlight, shouted for them to stop, but they didn't even slow down. Diane cut left behind an auto shop, moved like she had been practicing escapes her whole life.
Jack was clumsy, nearly ate the pavement, tripping over trash bags, but somehow he stayed on his feet. Kept thinking I could catch them. Damn, that alley was like an obstacle course, dumpsters, bottles everywhere. By the time I hit the street on the other end, they were piling into a car, tires already peeling out. The backup took forever. By the time they arrived, Jack, Diane, and Charlie were gone, just taillights disappearing into the night.
3 perspectives, 1 chaotic night. Chuck and Sheila got a front row seat to Diane's audacity and her friend's hesitation. And Officer Cam Stevens? He was the unlucky one who stumbled into their mess before his burrito even had a chance to thaw. Now, as the sirens faded into the distance and the city blurred into streaks of neon and shadow, the adrenaline that had driven their escape began to dissipate. Diane was behind the wheel, her laughter still echoing in the confined space of the car, a wild soundtrack to their recklessness. Charlie was in the back seat, wide-eyed and muttering fragments of disbelief, his grip on reality slipping further with every mile. But Jack sat in the passenger seat, silent, gripping the door handle as though it might anchor him to something solid. The chaos raging around him was muted now, replaced by a growing sense of unease. For the first time that night, Jack wasn't running from the cops or Diane's schemes. He was running from the truth he couldn't ignore. And in that fleeting moment of stillness, as the headlights painted fleeting patterns on the road ahead, Jack let himself reflect, not on the night's events, but on the choices that had led him here, to this car, to this life, to this unraveling. This was Jack's reckoning, the kind that comes when the noise dies down and all you're left with is your own thoughts.
I was in the passenger seat, white-knuckling the door handle like it was my lifeline. Diane was behind the wheel, driving like she had a personal vendetta against the road. And Charlie? Well, he was in the back seat, muttering to himself about sirens that weren't even there. I stared out the window, watching the streetlights flash past in a blur. My mind was wandering to places I probably shouldn't let it. Diane had this manic energy about her hands gripping the wheel like she was daring the car to push past its limits. She looked alive. And yes, beautiful. Also, it was like the chaos wasn't just part of her. It was like the air she breathed, like she couldn't exist without it. I felt empty, though. Not scared. Not angry. Just hollow. I thought about all those promises we'd made to each other back at the reunion, and everything felt easier. The drinks were flowing, and the years apart felt like a bad memory. "We'll go somewhere," she said. "We'll do something big." And I bought it. Hell, I believed her. But here we were, tearing down the highway with nothing to show for it except a dive bar that ended in cops, sirens, and a mess we couldn't undo. For the first time, I wondered if we were actually going anywhere at all. I wanted to ask her, but I didn't. Because, honestly, I didn't want to know. Not then. I wasn't ready to hear the answer, to face the truth that maybe, just maybe, this whole thing, her Me, all this chaos, all the promises. Just it.
Jack's fleeting moment of reflection in the passenger seat was exactly that. Fleeting. Diane didn't slow down for introspection, and she sure as hell didn't stop for regret. For her, Mekong wasn't a mistake. It was momentum. And with Jack and Charlie caught in her gravitational pull, the spark she'd lit was already roaring into a wildfire. But chaos like that doesn't burn quietly, and it doesn't burn without consequences. The fallout from Mekong was coming fast, faster than any of them could outrun. The cops weren't their only problem, though. The cracks between them, between loyalty, doubt, and desperation, were starting to widen. Next time, we'll follow the aftermath of their escape, the choices they made, and the storm they couldn't avoid. Because if Mekong was the beginning of their story, what comes next is the beginning of the end. Stay tuned for part 3, where secrets unravel, tensions explode, and the line between survival and betrayal becomes impossible to ignore. Thank you for listening. This has been a Stranger to Reality media production. We would like to thank the vocal talents of Christian Ledley as Jack Tremaine, Michelle Miller as Diane Parker, Darcy Thompson as Charlie McGregor, Jose Sardui as Chuck, Amy Connerly as Sheila Jones, and Chris Aubrey as Officer Cam Stevens. Once again, this podcast is a work of fiction. All names, characters, and events are products of imagination. Any resemblance to real people, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. Though, we wouldn't blame you for wondering.